Thank you, Davy, for the warm introduction. Good morning, everybody. And can I start by thanking our partners and colleagues in Medics Against Violence for the opportunity to be here and to share some thoughts with you this morning. With the exception of myself, I think the agenda for the next 2 days looks not just informative, but absolutely inspiring, and I'm sure you'll get a lot from it. I really hope the conversations and, of course, importantly, the connections that are made will really drive forward a commitment to reducing violence right across Scotland. As was introduced by Davy, I'm Mark Sutherland. I have responsibility across the west of Scotland, but also for that thematic lead round about violence, antisocial behaviour and stop and search. In the short time I have today, I'd like to speak about how we will seek to reduce violence in Police Scotland and, importantly, the importance of partnerships and collaboration in doing that. I'll speak a bit about the importance of a public health approach and share some insights around violence and young people, an issue which has sadly but rightly come back into focus over recent time and something that needs our continued and shared commitment. Most of my policing experience has been across Glasgow, and I think a useful starting point is to remember a bit of the journey that we have already been on. I think it's when I first came into policing, serious violence in both public spaces and at home was all too common. Youth and gang violence was routine, commonplace. Weapon carrying was routine, and far too many individuals and families suffered serious harm as a consequence. So we should recognise what has been achieved, the efforts of all those who contributed, and the lives that have been saved and improved as a consequence. But that's enough of backslapping and congratulating ourselves, as we have more to do, undoubtedly. The nature of violence is changing. Violence has once again started to increase and is happening in different ways than it happened before. The creation and growth of social media is fantastic and connects so many of our young people, but at the same time it introduces new harms that we need to guard against. And for those who were present at the First Minister's Youth Violence Summit recently and who listened to the young people and the families who have had horrific experiences of violence, whether that be in schools, on public transport and elsewhere, with the images of those attacks shared on social media. So how do our young people and our families get over such incidents when they can be re-traumatised through social media and other avenues time and time again? So we have much to do, and my colleagues and I in policing will play our part. We have never and will never stop pursuing those who cause harm, and we remain committed to working in collaboration to improve the approach to prevention, which is where our focus must be. I know many of you will be familiar with Police Scotland, but I know we have some visitors from across the UK and from much further afield, as we've heard from this morning. And in many ways, Police Scotland is still a relatively new organisation, but at the same time, we inherited the knowledge and the skills of the 8 legacy forces. We are the latest custodians of policing in Scotland, and we remain committed to best serving our communities. The point I really wanted to draw out from this slide is the purpose of Police Scotland. It's not a purpose we created. It is set in statute and is a legal responsibility. And this unique element of well-being for policing in Scotland is the commitment to improve not just the safety, but the well-being of our communities. To my knowledge, there is no other police service in the world that has such a legislative commitment, and I welcome the responsibility and remain absolutely committed to it. But such a responsibility does, of course, create both opportunity and challenge. On one hand, it serves as a platform for an increased focus on supporting the vulnerable in our communities and to commit resource and strategic direction and collaboration. But there can be conflict at times. The term well-being means different things to different people. So where does, and indeed where should, Police Scotland's commitment to well-being start and where should it end? For me, the answer is simply to develop and deliver effective structures, effective partnerships and collaboration across the public sector with a strong and well-supported third sector that maximises every opportunity to better support victims and to maximise our approach to prevention, pushing this more and more upstream. Like I said in my opening remarks, we have come a long way but have more to do, from shared services, shared resources, finances, buildings, from data and insights. there is much more to do. And so our approach to violence can undoubtedly be improved, but it is, however, one of our strongest areas. We are well skilled and experienced, one of the most developed in the Western world. And so a bit about the relationship between policing and health, which has always been strong, but at times challenging. You know, we have immense care and responsibility challenges right across the public sector. Medics Against Violence was born through a desire to prevent such conflict, to prevent serious violence and to reduce the tragic consequences from violence that we see right across the public sector. Under the direction of Dr. Christine Goodall, Medics Against Violence has prospered into the remarkable organisation that we see today, leading transformational work not only in Scotland but across the UK and beyond. Their efforts exemplify how health and policing can come together to prevent violence, addressing its root causes rather than merely dealing with the aftermath. Over the years, the partnership between Police Scotland and Medics Against Violence has grown stronger, with initiatives such as the Schools programme, which empowers school engagement officers to help young people understand the impacts of violence. This partnership has played a crucial role in fostering better outcomes for young people and communities alike. My own daughter is in fact one of the mentors in violence prevention in her own school, so I've seen firsthand how this programme works and the impact it has. It may even have reduced the fighting between her and her sister within my own home. Building on this strong foundation of partnership, Police Scotland and Medics Against Violence have achieved real outcomes through a range of initiatives. These efforts demonstrate the practical impact of our shared commitment to tackling violence and to supporting vulnerable people right across Scotland. Some excellent examples of this strong partnership can be found right across Scotland. For example, in Lanarkshire Division's prevention officers have been working closely with Medics Against Violence Director, Dr. Michael Murray, who I think you'll hear from later. Dr. Murray is a consultant based at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and treats people who have suffered severe brain injuries, often requiring emergency surgery. Dr. Murray takes this work out to secondary schools, engaging with children and their families, and to highlight the consequences of violence. Dr. Murray's work and commitment has been formally recognised in Lanarkshire through the award of one of our divisional commanders' recognitions, as can be seen in the photograph. In Glasgow, Medics Against Violence are core members of the North East Violence Prevention Board and have been working in support of education in secondary schools. Indeed, following the tragic murder of a local teenager in 2024, Medics Against Violence have been instrumental in assisting our community officers and the Scottish Violence Reduction Unit in rebuilding that community. In Western Bartonshire, Medics Against Violence have worked alongside key partners to assist Police Scotland in the development of a tailored training package for taxi drivers. This initiative aimed to equip drivers with the skills and knowledge required to identify and report vulnerabilities they may encounter during their daily work, contributing to community safety and well-being. Additionally, in 2024, Police Scotland's Children and Young People Unit facilitated two very impactful continuous professional development sessions along with Medics Against Violence. These sessions were designed for our own school engagement officers who do really valuable work right across the country and were highly successful and very well received. So I've spoken a bit about Police Scotland, our purpose. I've highlighted some of the work we are doing in the prevention space along with Medics Against Violence, and of course we also all work very closely with the Scottish Violence Reduction Unit. But to be properly effective, policing must have a strategic direction and some coordination. We must demonstrate best value for the resources we have and to ensure that the sum of our parts are delivering for our communities. In this particular slide, you'll see the strategic overlay that drives all of our violence activity. The framework's objectives are firmly aligned to our Chief Constable's 3-year plan and to our recent vision, which talks about safer communities, less crime, supported victims and a thriving workforce. The broader framework and objectives are rooted in collaboration, data and community engagement. By working with key partners, leveraging insights to understand the root causes of violence and tailoring interventions to the unique needs of our communities. We aim to deliver a Scotland where violence is reduced, victims are supported and young people are diverted from harm. Delivering this strategy rightly requires significant partnership and coordination with local authorities and through the community planning structures. We must, however, guard against the number of strategies and well-intentioned plans we have across Scotland, which at times serve to work against each other rather than come together and deliver violence reduction. From local outcome improvement plans to locality plans, local police plans, city business deals, we must ensure that we have a joined up, effective and coordinated approach that actually delivers for our communities. And one of my hopes from this conference is just that we can see and explore the connections, the duplications and the opportunities to focus our strategic direction into action which better serves our communities. Delivering this strategy and our objectives requires a pan-Scotland approach that is coordinated not just with external partners but internally and across the vast areas that Police Scotland covers within our remote, rural and urban areas of Scotland. To achieve this, Police Scotland has a dedicated violence prevention and coordination unit as part of our wider Policing Together Harm Prevention business area. Their role is to set the strategic direction, coordinate the approach and to support local delivery. Key to this is, of course, to support evaluation and learning and to share best practice across the country. Most recently, the national team have been supporting the development of our violence prevention control strategy, which provides a systematic plan to reduce both the instances and the impact of violence. The key elements of this, being high-level outcomes, are integrated partnership and robust evaluation frameworks. At the regional level, resources are shared and coordinated to address acute issues with violence, and additionally, we can broaden our use of data and insights to look at trends and to prioritise and improve outcomes. At the local level, our greatest impact is made through positive, meaningful and lasting community engagement. We work closely with community organisations, with schools and local leaders to understand specific challenges and to design targeted interventions that make a difference. This work helps to support place-based interventions and address local drivers of violence such as poverty, substance abuse and social exclusion. So, as I alluded to at the start of this presentation, we are sadly in a position where violence involving young people is once again increasing and indeed changing in its very nature. I'm now going to share some data and some insights with you. I hope these will drive a collective understanding and commitment to refocus our activities and partnerships to make a positive difference. Police Scotland has a crucial role in the protection and support of our children and young people in Scotland. We do this by following the principles of getting it right for every child, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of a Child, and through our responsibilities as a corporate parent. Any connection to an act of violence is a traumatic occasion for any child or young person. Understanding the data, the trends, and the insights into violence involving children and young people supports our ability to make a positive difference. Further analysis of violent crime in young people during 23 and 2024 provided the findings that you can see on the screen. So we can see the unacceptable number, 13,695 of violent crimes where young people were in conflict with the law. What we can see here is that common assault and threatening and abusive behaviour are by far the most frequent crimes that young people will come into conflict with. This means that these two crime types account for 19 out of 20 violent crimes where a young person has been identified as an accused. Approximately 2/3 were male and 1/3 were female in terms of our offenders, and the age at which a young person has been accused rises sharply between 11 and 14, and the rate then decreases between 15 and 20 years of age. What really struck me from this particular slide and these set of statistics was the fact that victims were now more likely to be female than male, with 1/3 of all offenders also female. I've commissioned further work into this area, and of course I have no doubt domestic violence in young people will be a factor, but anecdotally we see more and more conflict between girls, especially at school, and again the role of social media will be a factor here. In this slide, we can see the steady trajectory and slight increase in offending rates among those aged 11 to 14 in the 23-24 year, and that compared to lower levels during the COVID pandemic. This might suggest emerging trends or shifts in factors affecting this particular age group. The consistent data in 23-24 relative to previous years could just reflect a return to pre-pandemic patterns, but it is also worth investigating further to understand the specific social, economic and environmental changes that might be influencing these trends. It's also noticeable that offending rates drop sharply before beginning to rise again after the age of 17. So once again, this is worthy of further consideration and asks many questions around developmental and socio-economic factors, and about recidivism from younger years are also worth exploring. This slide looks specifically at the year 23-24 and again warrants further investigation. However, feedback from our partners in youth services and community learning and development indicate that this group of young people have missed face-to-face interactions during the pandemic. They now face challenges with social expectations and boundary setting, and this may be contributing to their difficulties in adjusting post-pandemic. And we are now working with the Scottish Institute for Policing Research to focus on research that will improve our insights in this particular area. So, having shared some data, some insights, and indeed outlined the challenges we face collectively, I will move towards the end of this presentation by focusing on some of the positive work that is ongoing. Work that is driven by police and partners who have a shared goal of preventing harm, reducing violence, and improving the lives of young people in our communities. As a divisional commander in Glasgow, I was proud to lead the development of our public health approach to policing. Most of the issues we collectively deal with are rooted in public health. From addiction to poverty and mental health, improving the public health of our nation must be the collective ambition of all public and third sector agencies. You will see from this side that the approach focuses on where police are uniquely placed to better support partners in improving public health outcomes. It recognises the police role in upholding the law and enforcement, but also about being a better citizen as part of an improved public health ecosystem. Here we will see that Glasgow's wider commitment to harm reduction is evident through a range of other initiatives, including One Glasgow. One Glasgow is a multi-agency programme aimed at diverting children and young people involved in crime or at risk of offending. It is a police-led initiative, but includes a range of partners across Glasgow, including the Health and Social Care Partnership, Children and Young Persons Services, and focuses on young people under the age of 25, and provides individual tailored support to meet their needs. Third sector partners, including ADAPT, Action for Children, and the NRS Youth Team, are also key drivers and partners in the success and look at life skills training, addiction support, employability coaching, and family and mental health services. And evaluating the impact of this really gives us cause to drive even more attention into this area. Within 3 months of completing a diversion programme, 93% of participants committed no further violent crimes and 80% had reduced offending overall. At 6 months, 100% of young people had committed no violent crimes and 72% had reduced their offending. On average, young people engage with the service for 184 days, making a tangible difference in their lives and in the wider community. These initiatives highlight the power of a public health and partnership-based approach in tackling the root causes of violence and providing meaningful, sustainable alternatives for young people. And so I've shared the good, the bad, and indeed the ugly of violence prevention, policing and partnership. Lots has been achieved, but we have much more to do. While this quote was focused on a response to police use of force within the US, I think it accurately sums up the challenge for and the ask, not just for policing, but for all those who play a part in the criminal justice system and who work together to keep communities safe. By aligning values with other partners, such as Medics Against Violence, we are committed to showing that public safety is not only possible, but is indeed achievable. Together, we are making strides towards a Scotland where prevention, compassion, and respect forms the foundation of our collective efforts. If we are truly to address violence in Scotland, collaboration is essential. If we work together and focus on providing early support and by fostering cultural change, we can make a meaningful difference, preventing violence before it occurs and sparing individuals and families the devastating consequences. I seem to have missed a slide. So I want to take this moment to sincerely thank Medics Against Violence once again for their vision, dedication and tireless work. Their efforts alongside those of their partners have created real tangible progress, and their leadership continues to be an inspiration for us all. Thank you for the invaluable contributions to making Police Scotland safer and healthier for everyone. And in closing, let us remember that safety and well-being of our communities depend on a broad and collective effort. Policing, violence prevention and collaboration are not separate endeavours, but joint responsibilities that require trust, innovation and shared commitment. Together, we can undoubtedly build stronger partnerships, address root causes and create lasting change. The future of our communities starts with the choices and partnerships we build today. I and all of my colleagues in Police Scotland stand ready to make those choices count. Thank you very much.
So any questions?
I'm an AE consultant. I'm interested in knowing what you think is driving that peak of violence at sort of 12, 13, yeah, what's driving that peak of violence at 12 to 13? And is there a difference between boys and girls?
Yeah, so I mean, you saw there in terms of the numbers begin to change. I mean, we did this as a bit of bespoke work earlier on this year, and I was quite. The numbers are changing, so the offending age is becoming younger, and the number of females who are involved appears to be growing. So it needs a bit of further, you know, it's like everything else. When you identify a change in the data, you need to go and look behind that. And that's what we're doing just now, is to try and draw that out. And that's why some of the elements I was talking about there, some of it is really a hypothesis at the moment about, has the pandemic caused any issues in terms of social isolation, boundary setting, you know, has that impacted on behaviour and development of our young people, which is causing offending to slide slightly younger? Is it indeed social media? Is it, you know, are our younger people growing up faster, being more exposed to more, adult themes at a younger age, which is driving that as well? So one of the key elements that I look after in the violence portfolio is to kind of expose some of these questions, and then working with SIPO, the Scottish Institute for Policing Research, and my own team is to then go and explore some of those hypotheses, to bring them to these types of partnerships as well, in collaboration, to try and say, you know, here's some data that we've found, here's some insights, how can we then look at what that is? So yeah, things are shifting a bit earlier, and we are seeing that change in the violence as well. So we're exploring that in terms of the pandemic and those and the social media, I think, are the two things that are worth looking at more. Go on, shout. Go on, I'll hear you.
Yeah, I'm very loud. Thank you. That was it's really great to hear about what's been happening. But I guess my question is, what happens once they're in the criminal justice system and they get to prison? And are those systems taking the same kind of rehab and preventative approach that you guys are taking to try and stop them getting into the system? Or are we still a little bit behind maybe in how we treat young people that have ended up in an institution, for example?
So I think there's, you know, we are undergoing criminal justice reform. You know, criminal justice is, like I said, an ecosystem. You know, as a journey. I think the starting point is to try and reduce the number of young people who end up in. Obviously, there's been that commitment through Scottish Government, I think, for no person under the age of 18 to end up within a prison. So that in itself, you know, we've changed a number of things over the last couple of years in terms of the criminal age of responsibility. Has changed. The number of young people who actually end up in prison has changed as well. So there are some positive outcomes from that. There is, of course, more work to do, I'm sure, and I'm sure colleagues within the Scottish Prison Service will continue to try and drive more positive outcomes. And then again, it's on the release side. So actually, prison is one thing, but actually having a criminal justice system that fully supports that reintegration back into communities on the other side, I think is one area that requires further work as well.
I'm just very interested in your presentation and the statistics, because I come here working in a primary school, and there's a small but significant minority of children who from a very early age are programmed, and I'm going to put it in a paraphrase really, I tell them stand up for themselves and hit back. So that is the culture. As I say, it's only in a tiny minority, but that's the minority that grew up into young people that have that ingrained attitude that it is, in order to be macho, you must hit back.
Yeah, I mean, if we could, having a solution for, and of course, parenting is a unique, parenting is very challenging, isn't it? It's very, very difficult, and what one parent thinks is a good thing, another parent doesn't. But nobody, I think, in their right mind should or could stand behind promoting violence as a way forward. So I think what we have to do is actually, well, how do we encourage and improve parenting as a collective and as a collaboration? But then if you can't change that, then what can we do within the schools and the relationships that Police Scotland has right across education? We continue to work at that. Our campus officers, as they're known in Glasgow, or our school engagement officers, as they're hopefully you have someone who from a secondary school comes into your own primary school or as a feeder. And there is definitely work to do that we can do to try and change those mindsets. And the earlier, and I think that's what we continue to see in the research, is that actually secondary school and beyond is actually too late. We need to, like everything in prevention, my view is we need to push it much further into the early years and begin to actually, you're not going to reprogram a 14, 15, 16-year-old, or you can, that's a lie, but it takes a much greater effort, and I'm sure you'll hear from other colleagues who are far more experienced than I am in that space. But my own sense and my own view is that we need to really, reinvest some of that effort into early years.
Okay, you're off the hook.